Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 2 Bob. I welcome you to my blog this morning. My name is Craig. Today's topic is the theory of evolution. Well, the actual topic name is Disproving the Theory of Evolution. So we're going to talk about the theory of evolution. So what is the theory of evolution? Well, what is evolution? The word evolution is nothing more than an acronym for the word change. So someone came up to me and said, do I believe in evolution? Well, of course I do, because things change all the time. There are changes in the natural world. Obviously, there are creatures that start up as a baby and mature into an adult. The seasons change. It's summer, then it's winter, then it's summer again. So some of these changes are progressive, some of them are more seasonal. So obviously, changes take place all the time, and some of these changes we can measure and we can see. So what about the theory of evolution? Now, the theory of evolution basically predicts a specific type of change and the methodology behind that change. The theory of evolution tells us that all earthly life, both past and present, originated from what's known as the primordial soup, otherwise known as the prebiotic soup. Now from there we have two things. We have natural selection and random mutations. Now we're told that a progressive and natural form of evolution takes place anytime a random mutation is selected as being deemed beneficial and then passed on. So random mutations occur naturally over time, and it's the good ones that are selected, so to speak. And that's what represents our evolution, our positive, progressive evolution upwards. That's what we're told as fact. There are people in the science world that vehemently believe that this theory is fact. It's a scientific fact. But it's not. It's rubbish. It's very easy to disprove this theory. Okay, let's think about the term natural selection. Well, built into that word is the word select. Select. Now, it doesn't matter what word you put before it. Select requires intelligence. To select anything at all requires intelligence, because that's what intelligence, the faculty of intelligence, fundamentally entails. You and I, human beings, we share something with our animal counterparts, is the capacity to make a choice, to select from one option over another. That's intelligence. But I'll submit to you, we're told that the ongoing concurrence of random mutations and natural selection gave rise to the very first instance of intelligence. It gave rise to the faculty of intelligence. That was what we were told. But that's fundamentally and logically impossible. What was it that selected the very first random mutation? Well, intelligence has to be there from the very beginning. It has to predate this entire evolutionary concept, doesn't it? Now think of the chicken before the egg scenario. We know that eggs give rise to chickens and chickens give rise to eggs. But we know there has to be a logical solution to this, because we know that chickens and eggs exist. Well, the only logical solution is to invoke something which exists outside the system or paradigm of chickens and eggs. So this source of intelligence has to be there from the very, very beginning, if evolution is even possible. So therefore, we've just disproven this Big Bang theory then and there. It's a ridiculous theory, because we're told that the theory of evolution tells us that intelligence is a product of the ongoing concurrence of natural selection and random mutations. But we know that simply is not possible. Because in order to select anything, intelligence, the faculty of intelligence, has to be there from the very beginning. That's really, really simple. Now, having said that, as I said to you before, of course, there's evolution taking place in the world all around us. But the burden of proof is upon those that insist a specific type of evolution is factually true. For example, if you're going to insist that all things originated from the primordial soup, then the burden of proof is upon you to substantiate that. Again, this whole idea of being linked to this primordial soup is fundamentally ridiculous. We know that DNA has a half-life of 521 years. So every 521 years going back in the past, the quality halves in time. So it halves after one period of 521 years, the next 521 years it halves again, the next 521 years it halves again and keeps going back. Well, we're told that the primordial soup existed many millions of years ago. So DNA cannot possibly use to link us to this primordial soup. But look even further into it. What is this primordial soup? What is it? Have you seen a primordial soup? I've never seen a primordial soup. It's theoretical. That's all it is. There's no such thing as a primordial soup. It's just a concept up here that certain zealots of the evolution movement created for you to believe in. Now, what about the fossil record? Evidence tells us that there are creatures that are buried at certain locations in the ground. So it appears to be some kind of evolutionary link between those layers in the fossil record. But I submit to you cannot prove that any of these creatures had children. Unless you can do that, it's not factual, it's speculative. You can only speculate that these creatures, maybe if you can use DNA to prove, say, one layer of in the fossil records linked to another, that doesn't necessarily prove that they're all linked. As I said to you, DNA really only takes us back maybe a couple of thousand years at most. That's just absolutely bunk. Anyway, that's not the only reason I want to disprove this ridiculous theory. I want to talk about why. Why do we embrace this theory? Why do people care about it? Well, the theory of evolution supports the survival of the fittest mentality, the idea that the strong has the right to devour the weak, right? This is a centerpiece of Nazi philosophy. The Nazis went after the Jews because they thought the Jews were lower down on the food chain. They had the right to suppress them too. And that's what Adolf Hitler essentially believed. Now, I don't believe that. Most of you guys don't believe that. Well, I hope you don't believe that, because it's the evolutionary mindset that gives rise to these type of philosophies. It's dark, right? But look at it on a more local level. Suppose that you were to bring children into the world and your children were to bully others in the schoolyard. Okay, it's not just that, it's bullying at work, it could be anywhere, no? And what's the real motivation to curtail bullying if you believe in this survival of the fittest? If it's in your head, if evolution, the theory of evolution is in your head, and you believe that the strong ultimately have the desire, natural right to devour the weak, then what's really curtailing your efforts? What's really motivating you into curtailing abuse anywhere in the world? So I believe that the theory of evolution is an accessory to so much abuse on this earth, and that abuse is measured in the lack of motivation to curtail bullying anywhere it occurs. Because the evolutionary theory, the theory of evolution, it cradles, it supports this bullying, it supports the abuse, it supports this idea. So when you see someone who's weak being devoured by the strong, that's part and parcel of this evolutionary concept. So on one hand, people feel the need to help and protect and nurture those that are being bullied. But if you believe in this theory of evolution, there's a part of you that in conflict with that need to resolve this bullying issue. Because there's a part of you that believes that this should happen, because this is what happens, this is what's been happening for billions of years, so you're told. And so really, you just need to purge this theory from your mind. That restores your natural sense of motivation to curtail bullying. Now, if you were to remove the theory of evolution from the textbooks, from the high school textbooks, from the educational system, but above all, if you were to remove it from your head, your mind, what do you have left? Well, if the universe, if it was created by a God, if that's the case, if it was created by an intelligent cause, you can call it God, you can call it whatever you want, that means that we were created. That means that we all serve the same, we all have a purpose. Now, some of us have more money than others, but fundamentally, we all have the same sense of dignity that's attached to our lives. So with that comes a natural sense of our motivation to deal with any type of bullying or any type of harassment or any type of action which impinges upon someone else's sense of dignity. Okay, see? You put this theory of evolution in your head, that becomes a curtailing, that comes, it curtails your sense of motivation. It reduces your sense of motivation to care. And I believe there's tremendous amount of abuse and pain and suffering in this world. And it's all because that people, this natural sense of motivation has been curtailed, has been reduced as a response to believing in this concept of survival of the fittest. See, natural selection, it exists in the real world. I mean, I've seen National Geographic videos of a lion killing its own cubs because he thought a particular cub, well, it didn't kill all of it. It had about 5 or 6 cubs and it killed, say, 2 of them because of the father lion suspected that they're just not up to the task. So that's called natural selection. It's cruel and it occurs in the animal world. Another thing I want to talk about is free will. Now, in my previous post, I talked about free will. Now, at this point, not too many people have watched this video, or no one at this point, which is a real shame, because I think that lies at the heart of what distinguishes us between us and our animal counterparts, is our free will. See, I believe we have free will. Free will gives us the capacity to act before the encounter of sufficient psychological and or physical duress. Animals, on the other hand, they only act upon sufficient psychological and or physical duress, and that's what separates us. So animals waiting for it to. So an animal only changes when it's forced to change. Now, the theory of evolution is being used to bring us down to a basic animal level. And so we're only going to change when we're forced to change. Now, that may be all right in the world, but I believe in God, and I don't think God approves of the idea of waiting until you're forced to change or something before you change your mind. Your attitude needs to change before the encounter of sufficient psychological and or physical duress, not when you encounter it. I think that's the hallmark of the creator who made this, our creation, which is us. That's what I truly believe. And evolution, the theory of evolution really attacks our humanity by kind of bringing us down to an animal level. Now, we get our values from here. We know that deep down, you can't just rape, you can't just steal, you can't do, there are certain things that you know you can't do. It's not because of something that's written down on a piece of paper. You know you can't do it. You know that you love your mother. You know, it's not written down on a piece of paper, but you know that. And so deep down you know that you're a human being, and deep down you know that you're not an animal. You were created in distinction to your animal counterparts. And the cornerstone distinction is free will. We have the capacity to act before we're forced to. Animals only have the capacity to act when they're forced to. Okay, so evolution, the theory of evolution really attacks us and makes us believe that it's okay to wait until we're forced to change before we do, which I think in God's eyes is an abomination. That's what I truly believe. Anyway, that's what I have to say about this theory. It's a dumb theory. It needs to be removed. The burden of proof is upon anyone who believes that any specific type of evolution has taken place. If you think that we came from the primordial soup, then prove it. You can't use DNA. And you've got no idea what the primordial soup even looks like, so you've got no chance in hell of doing it. Trust me on that. And creatures buried at certain layers in the ground, that's just evidence of creatures that once existed. Now, you may be able to show an evolutionary link between some of these layers or some creatures within these layers. Kudos to you. But showing this link between one or two creatures doesn't prove the whole thing, which is what those that believe in evolution desperately wants us to believe. Yeah, so just like the Big Bang Theory, the theory of evolution cradles or nurtures an excellent impression of God's non-existence. And I think that lies at the absolute heart of all of this. The people out there that just don't like God at all, they hate God, and I can understand it, but hatred is just a feeling that comes and goes like the wind. If you can admit that, you don't have to be a slave to your hatred. Just admit that whatever hatred you have, it's gone tomorrow. Towards God, it doesn't matter. I mean, how I feel towards God doesn't make a difference to me, because I know it's fickle, it changes, blows around in the wind. So if you believe in this theory of evolution simply because you don't like God, then this is what I have to say to you. It doesn't matter if you hate God. Just admit there is a loving God out there, and that it's the very admission of this loving God that blows away this evolutionary nonsense. Just admit. Somehow, you find it in your capacity, just admit that all of this is a product of a loving, caring God. That's difficult to believe for some people. Especially if your house is burnt down by fire, a natural fire, or hurricane or something like that. It's very difficult to kind of embrace that, but somehow factor that into your worldview, and that will blow away this evolutionary concept once and for all. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, that's terrific. If you didn't, I apologise, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.